Last year, when this battalion of more than 700 was ordered to Ramadi, only 140 went. The rest quit. Now the battalion is rebuilding. Colonel Rod says to be effective, he needs a mix of soldiers from all over the country.
I have got Sunnis, I got Shia, I got Kurdish in my battalions right now.
So he's had to dig deep for recruits. And some are, well, a little young, like Amjad. We spotted him in the barracks. He's only 15. His ID card still features his baby picture. He says his family of 15 relies on his paycheck to survive. The colonel claims to be unaware. What's the minimum age to join the Iraqi army?
العمر هسه حاليا تحدد من 18 سنة إلى 35 سنة.
18 to 35.
But he has soldiers that are much younger than
يقول بس انت عندك جنود اعمارهم اقل من هذا العمر.
لا لا.
The Americans also avoid the topic.
It's not our army and it's not our country.
What would the colonel do if he found soldiers that were under 18 in his unit?
That's not my responsibility. They can train and they can do good.
During target practice, the young soldiers indeed do okay. Combat might be different. The U.S. military is teaching the Iraqis the skills to fight. But the question is, do they have the will to fight?
I'm in. Down.
Rain is forecast. But the Americans have scheduled an important joint operation for today.
All right, go.
Once you're inside an armored Humvee, it's hard to see and hear. Sometimes it's almost impossible to know what's going on outside. As we roll along the highway, the danger becomes palpable. Red tail lights. Is this a sign of trouble? The convoy stops. Is it an IED? Are those just villagers along the side of the road, or are they insurgents? Could this be an ambush? What are all those trucks doing? What about that car? We've been with American and Iraqi forces today on the highways, pulling over vehicles and looking for anyone transporting bombs or weapons. The rain intensifies. The sky turns the color of blood mixed with sand. The convoy turns around. They decide that even a dedicated bomber wouldn't be out in this weather. Back at base, they gas up for tomorrow's mission. Major Calvert carries a heavy burden. It's up to him to make sure that these Iraqis can take up the fight on their own. Right now, they can't.
They are not considered a deployable unit. They had so many deserters before they went to Ramadi. There are some people in this country that join the army just to have a job. And when it comes down to doing that job, okay, I've gotten paid, now I'm going to be in a dangerous situation, forget this, I'm going home.
Calvert says it's Colonel Rod's job to overcome that.
He's a true warrior, and he cannot stand bureaucracy.
But avoiding bureaucracy means that the colonel keeps the entire operation in his head. He doesn't delegate or reveal his thoughts. That may be okay if you're a tribal leader, but it's not an efficient method of command for a modern army. So it turns out that the Americans' chief task here is less about teaching combat skills, more about teaching management. We talked in Fort Riley about trust, learning who to trust once you've gotten here, that you're working with a force that we used to fight not that long ago. How has that played out for you?
Well, I trust Rod. I trust all the officers and soldiers I've met in his battalion. They don't seem to be holding a grudge against us for invading their country.
The task today is a trip to convince Iraqi Higher Command for this area to provide military support for convoys that bring food and supplies to villages in the region. We're off this morning for a meeting in Mosul. That's about 100 kilometers up the road. This is anything but a normal office commute. Every vehicle we pass holds the possibility of being a car bomb. As a matter of fact, when they made this same trip just a few days ago, they were hit by 3 roadside bombs and a nasty ambush. The Americans link up with Colonel Rod's men and head out. Once they leave the open desert and get closer to the city of nearly 2 million people, the threat level intensifies.
Hey, 5, confirm whether or not that's an IED.
Roger. They don't think it's an IED.
They take a wrong turn.
Oh my god, yeah. Are we not on base anymore? The hell?
They arrive late for the meeting. The Iraqi general lets Major Calvert know he's not happy.
We come together.
The general is a Kurd. He isn't inclined to help Sunni civilians in Colonel Rod's tribal area. As a matter of fact, he doesn't like Rod much either, so he turns down the request. Civilian supply convoys will continue to risk attack. And the unit begins its long and dangerous trek home. It took 9 soldiers, 3 Humvees, and 12 hours to take one major to a meeting. And that's the pace of progress here in Iraq. Frustrating perhaps, but the Americans here have a different definition of success.
If nothing happens on a mission and we come back here, all the guys download the trucks and we all get some sleep, that is a successful mission to me.
Lieutenant Scott Tyner is in charge of a support platoon at Jag North. His 14 soldiers guard the base. This is his first deployment to Iraq. He hasn't spent any time in Baghdad. That goes a long way toward explaining his view of the situation.
I'd say 95% of the country is in good shape, and they're making huge leaps and bounds every day.
Not the way the world sees it, but a common opinion for the military here. Today, Lieutenant Tyner is attending a meeting of the village council. Council members are also struggling with the problem of how to protect convoys carrying supplies for civilians. Convoys that are increasingly targeted since the surge in Baghdad began. Having the entire village leadership in one room might provide a tempting target for insurgents. Security is evident. The conclave has a timeless feel. The sheikhs and elected officials gather under the symbols of their nation and their faith. They smoke and talk, exchange opinions, take notes. Consensus is valued. The police chief, Agab Harouche, who is Colonel Rod's brother, says Osama bin Laden gives them all a bad name. Tea is served. They vow to work together to fix the problem. Afterward, the guards pose for pictures with their new American friends. Another small step toward trust. This is like you're part warrior, part statesman, part politician. Did you learn this in training?
There's no training for this real world stuff.
The troops also build trust in more traditional ways.
The Iraqi are beating us 3-1 right now.
There aren't really enough Americans to field a team, and they have to use sign language to settle disputes.
And they play without shoes and they have no soccer gear, but they used to play like this.
Even without gear, the Iraqis do okay. Actually, better than okay. This is one area the Americans won't be passing on their skills. But even in this relaxed atmosphere, fans hide their faces when the camera points their way. No one wants to be tagged a collaborator. For the transition team, overcoming suspicion, fear, and resentment on the part of the Iraqis is at the heart of the mission. Even though the Americans eat breakfast and dinner on their own side of the base, the team comes to the Iraqi chow hall at lunchtime in a gesture of solidarity. They sit apart from the junior soldiers, at the officers' table. The food is delicious. Bread is baked the traditional way, but the disparity between the fortunes of the two sides is apparent once again. There aren't enough dishes for everyone, so the soldiers wait in line until a plate becomes available. This is the sort of thing they didn't learn at Fort Riley. You haven't done any missions here that I've seen that correlated to the training that we got to take at Fort Riley.
Very interesting. And you've already come to that conclusion.
Can the Iraqi army be transformed into a non-sectarian, professional fighting force that will be devoted to the nation as a whole, and not just to a region or a village or a sect? A report that the Maliki government is firing Sunni commanders doesn't bode well for Colonel Rod. Is this method, embedding a few American soldiers, a transition team, into an Iraqi battalion, effective? These two men form the linchpin of the endeavor. A sheikh and a soldier. As the deep blue sky mellows into a glowing pink, they stroll among the colonel's sheep, a flock he grazes on the vast stretches of the base. The sheikh professes great respect for his fellow soldier.
I work with him as a brother because we are here for the same purpose. We face the same destiny.
The soldier says he sees Rod as a kindred spirit.
He just thinks about one thing, and that's accomplishing the mission. That makes him number one in my book.
But will these sentiments even matter if they are ordered into the vicious streets of the capital? Or does it only work here, away from the daily slaughter of Baghdad? And maybe that's why this desert hillside at nightfall is a good place to talk things over for two people with no words or worlds in common.